All right, quiz 4 study guide. Problem number 1. In triangle ABC, angle A is a right angle, and angle B, the measure of angle B is 45 degrees. So this angle down here is 45 degrees. Find BC. If your answer is not an integer, leave it in simplest radical form. All right, so if one angle in a right triangle is 45 degrees, then the other angle is 45 degrees. And from your notes on Monday, this becomes a special right triangle. And in a 45, 45, 90 special right triangle, both of the legs are congruent, and the hypotenuse is one of the legs times the square root of 2. So BC is equal to 11 radical 2. That means 11 times radical 2. So if your answer is not an integer, this is not an integer, you can just leave it in this simplest radical form. All right, so there's your simplest radical form, 11 radical 2. Problem number 2, find the lengths of the missing sides of the triangle. Write your answers as integers or decimals rounded to the nearest tenth. All right, so again, it's a right triangle. If one acute angle is 45, then the other acute angle is 45. That makes it an isosceles right triangle. It makes both legs congruent. So if this leg on the left is 7, then y is equal to 7 as well. And it's a special right triangle, so the hypotenuse is equal to one of the legs times radical 2. So now we got to change up here. Write your answers as integers or decimals rounded to the nearest tenth. So rounded to the nearest tenth, in your calculator, you go second fix 1, and then you type 7 times 2 square root and hit equals. So x is equal to 9.9 and y is equal to 7. All right, problem number 3. The length of the hypotenuse of a 30, 60, 90 triangle is 4. So let's draw this 30, 60, 90 triangle first. The length of the hypotenuse of a 30, 60, 90. So here's our 30, 60, 90. The hypotenuse is across from or opposite the 90-degree angle, and it is 4. You need to find the perimeter. So if we label this ABC, I'm going to find side AC first. If you remember from Monday that the short leg of a 30, 60, 90 right triangle is always half the distance or half the length of the hypotenuse. So AC is half of 4, which is 2. And the short leg times the square root of 3 equals the long leg of a 30, 60, 90. So side AB would be equal to 2 radical 3. You need the perimeter. So the perimeter of this triangle is going to be 2 plus 4 plus 2 radical 3. And in simplest form, the perimeter is going to be equal to 2 plus 4 is 6 plus 2 radical 3. if we convert this to a decimal, if you convert this to a decimal, let's see if we do, we're going to go 6 plus 2 times 3 square root and hit equals. We get a 9.5. All right, so this would be in simplest radical form. This would be in decimal form, rounded to the nearest tenth. All right, problem number 4, find the values of the variables. If your answer is not an integer, leave it in simplest radical form. So again, if we have a right triangle and one of the acute angles is 30, then the other one is 60. So we've got a 30, 60, 90 right triangle. The side opposite the 30-degree angle is always the short leg. The short leg is 17. The short leg of a 30, 60, 90 is always half of the hypotenuse. So y is equal here to 17 times 2, which is 34. So our hypotenuse is 34. Our long leg, which would be, I'll call it AB, in a 30, 60, 90, the long leg is always opposite the 60-degree angle, and it is equal to the short leg times the square root of 3. So x is equal to 17 times square root of 3. All right, so find the value of the variables. X is going to be equal to 17 radical 3, and y is going to be equal to 34. Problem number 5 asks you to write tangent ratios for angle P and angle Q. So I'm going to write this acronym on here first. Tangent ratios. Tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So we're going to start with P. So tan P is equal to, here's P, its opposite side is 20, its adjacent side is 21. All right, remember the side opposite the 90 is always the hypotenuse. If you're asked to write tangent ratios, there's no h in TOA, so you're not going to use the hypotenuse at all here. You need tangent of angle Q. So tan Q is equal to opposite of Q is 21. Adjacent to Q is 20. Now, these are both in simplest form. When you take your quiz tomorrow, make sure that you always simplify these fractions as best you can. Use trig ratio to find the value of x. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. Okay, my calculator's already set to second fix 1. We've got a 20-degree angle. The 9 is opposite the 20-degree angle. The x that we're trying to find is adjacent to the 20-degree angle. Opposite and adjacent is tangent, so tan 20 equals the opposite side over the adjacent side. Multiply both sides by x. The x's on the right cancel, so x times tan 20 equals 9, and then divide both sides by tan 20. The tan 20s cancel, and your x equals 9 divided by 20 tan equals 24.7. Problem number 7. You've got a couple of options. Whatever you feel more comfortable with. If one angle in a right triangle is 30, the other angle is 60. In a 30, 60, 90 right triangle, it's a special right triangle. The long leg, side AB, is the square root of 3 times bigger than the short leg. So you can say that x is equal to 7 divided by the square root of 3. So in your calculator, you can take 7, you can divide it by 3, square root, hit equals, and I get 4. The other way you can do it is using a trig ratio. We've got opposite and adjacent again. Opposite and adjacent is tangent, so you could say that tan 30 equals x over 7. Multiply both sides by 7. 7 times 30 tan equals, and 4 equals x. So either way, x is equal to 4. You can use the special right triangles rule and convert it to a decimal or whole number. You can also use sine, cosine, tangent. All right, find the value of x. In relation to our 28-degree angle, we have an adjacent side, and we have a hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. Cosine 28 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. I'm going to multiply both sides by x. The x's on the right cancel. X times cosine 28 is equal to 11. We can divide both sides by cosine 28. So the cosine 28s will cancel, and our x equals 11 divided by 28 cosine equals 12.5. Problem number 9, we're dealing with a pen not writing, adjacent and hypotenuse again. All right, adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine, so we got cosine 36. equals the adjacent side, which is the x, over the hypotenuse, which is 10. Multiply both sides by 10. The 10s on the right cancel, so 10 times 36 cosine equals 8.1. Looks like I might be missing some pages here. I thought there was 11 problems on this study guide. Oh, there they are. All right, problem number 10. In relation to our angle, we've got an opposite side and we've got a hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine 35 equals the opposite side 18 over the hypotenuse, which is x. Going to multiply both sides by the x. So x times sine 35 equals 18. Divide both sides by sine 35. And our x is equal to 31.4. And then in problem number 11, again, in relation to the angle, we've got opposite and hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine, so we're going to do sine of 20 is equal to x over 18. Multiply both sides by 18. 18 times 20 sine 6.2 is equal to x. And that will complete your study guide for quiz 4. You've got the rest of the period to get your electronic assignments completed and submitted for this week. Make sure you're checking your due dates on those.